Hello ladies, gentlemen, and persons in between. My name is Tim Snowborn, and we're here today to talk about the WalkAway movement on this episode of Serious Issues. So as I mentioned before, while I was at home in Minnesota, I did a lot of thinking and came up with a bunch of ideas for new videos that I wanted to make. And this was actually the first idea that I came up with because I saw this WalkAway video before I left for Minnesota. But I only had a week left, and I decided I'm not going to try and hurry up and get this in before I leave. I'm just going to wait until I get back and tackle it then. If you haven't heard of the WalkAway movement, it's basically a bunch of allegedly former liberals who have decided that liberals in general are too mean to conservatives, so they're going to completely abandon their liberal values and join the conservative side of the aisle. Which is a bit like Anakin Skywalker doing a 180 to the dark side and deciding it's okay to kill a room full of toddlers because, hey, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? Now the leader of this movement is a fella named Brandon Straka, a New York City hairdresser and, interesting side note, openly gay. Not that I think we should hold that against him at all, that's fine. But it is worth pointing out for reasons that will become apparent in a minute. So what I thought we'd do is we're going to watch this video of his, and I'm going to pause it and react to what's being said bit by bit. Then at the end, we'll talk about my overall thoughts on the piece.
Once upon a time, I was a liberal.
I'm not totally sure I believe that.
Well, to be honest, less than a year ago, I was still a liberal. I became a liberal because I felt I'd found a tribe whose values align with my own. I staunchly reject racism of any kind. I reject the marginalization of any human being based off of their gender or sexual orientation.
Now don't get me wrong, I honestly don't believe that all conservatives are racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, etc. But those things sure do seem to be popular among conservatives. To paraphrase John Stuart Mill, not all conservatives are racist, but all racists are conservatives. And of course you could substitute racist with homophobic, sexist, xenophobic, whatever. Not all conservatives are those things, but people who are those things are almost all conservative. You want some examples? Hardly a week goes by that I don't see a video or read an article about someone being yelled at for speaking Spanish or being beaten and called racial slurs because they were Hispanic or Latino. This man harassed a woman just for wearing a Puerto Rico t-shirt. What about these guys? They clearly did not vote for Clinton. The CEO of Papa John's had to step down after repeatedly using racial slurs during a conference call. Do you think he voted for Clinton? Oklahoma just passed a law allowing adoption agencies to deny children to gay couples on religious grounds. Jeff Sessions just recently announced his Religious Liberty Task Force, and how much do you want to bet the bulk of their work is going to be allowing businesses to discriminate against gay people? Some states, like Michigan, have different work requirements for Medicare in predominantly black counties as opposed to white counties. How many times have we heard stories in the news this year of white people calling the police on black people for minding their own business? Do you realize how much the frequency of hate crimes has jumped since Donald Trump was elected? For every bloody nose you can point to on your side of the aisle, I can show you at least 2 dead bodies on my side. You don't want to start comparing body counts. That's not going to end well for you. Again, guys, I don't believe that all conservatives are haters, but if you're a conservative and you're not hateful, you might want to talk to the people on your team who clearly are. I try to give you guys the benefit of the doubt and assume that you're not racist, sexist, homophobic, or if you are, that you just don't realize it. Some of you genuinely don't understand that you're being discriminatory, and it should be politely explained to you. Do you have any idea how many Nazis, Klansmen, and Holocaust deniers are openly running for Congress this year? In North Carolina, we have unabashed white supremacist Russell Walker running for the State House of Representatives. A man who said, quote, "Jews are not Semitic because they are satanic, as they all descend from Satan." That guy is running on the GOP. In Illinois, we have Arthur Jones, the Republican candidate for the state's 3rd congressional district, who has bragged about being a member of the American Nazi Party and said that the idea that 6 million Jews were killed in World War II is the biggest and blackest lie in history. In California, a neo-Nazi podcast contributor who says that diversity is a Jewish plot is running for Congress on the GOP ticket. South Dakota Republican State Representative Michael Clark said that businesses should be allowed to turn away blacks and Hispanics if they want to. I'm old enough to remember when Nazis, Klansmen, and Holocaust deniers running on the GOP ticket were smart enough not to admit those things. So, how many Nazis, Klansmen, and Holocaust deniers are running on the Democratic side? None? Thought so.
I reject tyrannical groupthink. I reject a system which allows an ambitious, misinformed, and dogmatic mob to suppress free speech, create false narratives, and apathetically steamroll over the truth. I reject the acceptance of junk science and superstition to advance ideological agendas.
You reject all those things? You're clearly not a conservative if you reject those things. Conservatives are the ones who reject climate science, evolution, Big Bang, and anything that contradicts their closely held religious beliefs. So I don't see why you could now be a conservative.
I reject hate.
These people clearly don't.
These are the reasons why I became a liberal. And these are the same reasons why I am now walking away. For years now, I have watched as the left has devolved into intolerant, inflexible, illogical, hateful, misguided, ill-informed, un-American, hypocritical, menacing, callous, ignorant, narrow-minded, and at times, blatantly fascistic behavior and rhetoric.
Ah, the old I'm rubber, you're glue strategy. Goebbels would be proud.
Liberalism has been co-opted and absorbed by the very characteristics it claims to fight against.
See, this is my first major complaint about this video. He equates the far left with the left in general. I know that not all conservatives are neo-Nazis and Klansmen and the extreme right. I don't make that generalization, but he is definitely trying to make it look as if the far left is the whole left. Straka wants to highlight left-wing violence and act like that represents the entire ideology while sweeping right-wing violence under the rug. Are there any left-wing militias? Do left-wing protesters typically show up to their rallies with body armor and an assault rifle strapped over their shoulder and a handgun on each hip? This is the level of violence the far right engages in. The far left chases people out of restaurants. The far right runs people over with cars and fires guns into crowds.
For years now, I've watched as people on the left have become anesthetized to their own prejudices and bigotry.
I looked up this article. It's actually about how black men treat black women the way white people treat black people. The guy makes some interesting arguments. I recommend looking it up and reading it yourself instead of just taking this guy's word for it.
And the prejudices and bigotry of those around them who echo their values. I have watched as formerly sensible people who claim to reject racism have come to embrace the principles of universally hating and blaming all of society's problems on all people who have white skin.
Not all of society's problems are white people's fault, but we are responsible for quite a lot of them. And no, reverse racism is not a thing. Just because someone says something disparaging about white people doesn't mean there is systemic discrimination against white people. Big difference.
I have witnessed the irony of advocacy for gender equality morph into blatant hatred and intolerance of men and masculinity.
Once again, men not responsible for all of society's problems, but boy, we sure are responsible for a lot of them. I am very confident that the vast majority on the left do not literally hate straight white men. If the left hates traditional masculinity so much, the liberal bastion of Hollywood sure is doing a bad job of reflecting that.
I have seen the once earnest fight for equality for the LGBT community mutate into an illogical demonization of heteronormativity and the push to vilify and attack our conventional concepts of gender.
Now this is where the fact that Straka is a gay man becomes kind of ironic. As a gay man, I feel confident that there have been times in Straka's life where he was afraid to be out of the closet, and on those occasions he wasn't afraid of the liberals. 10 years ago, a man like Straka would not have been allowed to marry the man that he loves. He wouldn't have been allowed to serve openly in the military. He didn't have those rights because conservatives did not want him to. Liberals gave him those rights, and now he sides with the people who were against him from the beginning. I'm actually fine with people having conventional concepts of gender as long as they don't use that to discriminate against people who don't fit their conventional concepts of gender. More importantly though, you would think that a gay man like Straka would have the mental flexibility to realize that conventional concepts of gender don't really fit reality very well. You would think that a gay man would understand. I bet Mr. Straka doesn't go to a lot of LGBT pride events because I imagine things must be a little awkward there for someone who has conventional concepts of gender.
These same self-proclaimed victims of intolerance now turning on the gay community that they attached themselves to advance their agenda, now calling gay people privileged and themselves victims of injustice.
Once again, I invite you to look up these articles yourself and read what they actually say. I'm positive it's a very small minority of liberals indeed who would call gay men privileged. Again, let's not cherry pick examples of the extreme left and generalize it to the whole left.
I have watched as the left has allowed themselves to become hypnotized by false narratives and conclusions perpetuated by social justice warriors who misrepresent and misconstrue facts, evidence, and events.
We misrepresent facts, evidence, and events? I think that's what this entire video is about.
To confirm their own biases that everyone who does not comply with their prejudicial conclusions and follow their orders is a racist, a bigot, a Nazi, a white supremacist, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, and alt-right extremist. And I have watched as they have used these heartless and carelessly assigned labels to intimidate, threaten, bully, silence, attack, unemploy, blacklist, and destroy anybody who dares to fight back.
Okay, the right has definitely done all of that too. Just ask James Gunn. Speaking of threats and intimidation, how about these Utah gun fanatics who followed around the Parkland survivors in an armored vehicle with a replica machine gun designed to simulate machine gun fire on it? This brings up the question of civility and whether or not both sides of the aisle can and should be civil to each other. Now, this subject really deserves its own video, which I'll probably make later, but for now I will just say this. I would love to have a calm, peaceful discussion about the issues and some of the things that are happening in America today. But there are some people who clearly do not want that. There are some horrible things happening in America today, and I am not inclined to have a peaceful conversation with people who support those things. You do realize that the Jews were encouraged to be civil toward the Nazis before the shit hit the fan. No, I don't think that all conservatives are Nazis, but you have to ask yourself why Nazism is so popular among conservatives.
They'll come for me, and then they'll come for you.
That part never gets old. They'll come for me, and then they'll come for you. What is he even talking about? What does come for you? Okay, if responding to your video is coming for you, then yeah, I guess you'll get some of that. But he says that like we're gonna drag him from his house and throw him in the darkest oubliette in Eastern Europe. It's so melodramatic. They'll come for you.
And worst of all, the Democratic Party and the liberal media has embraced, affirmed, aided, and abetted this cult ideology.
We're a cult? The left is a cult? This from the people who will bend over backwards and twist themselves into knots to excuse anything Trump does. Anything. Many on the right have convinced themselves that Donald Trump is a Christian, a man who feels that he has nothing to repent for and who is anything but humble. We've got people on the right expressing their admiration for Russia now. Russia! Because they love Trump so much. But we're a cult.
In an effort to gain voters and maintain power.
Maintain power? I'm sorry, who controls all three branches of government right now?
The Democratic Party that I once loved has joined forces with the extremist left.
Tell that to the Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders supporters who've completely written off the Democratic Party, not because they're so hateful, but because they're not liberal enough. That's part of the reason Trump won, is because the far left refused to vote for Hillary Clinton.
The Democratic Party and the liberal media now believe their own ill-gotten conclusions and have ominously decided that they, and only they, know the remedy for society's ills.
And the right doesn't? The right doesn't believe that they and only they have the remedy for society's ills? Please.
The left has decided that the solution to problems with race relations in America is more racism. The left believes that attacking, insulting, and dehumanizing one group of people elevates another.
The strategy of attacking one side to elevate another seems to be a pretty popular one on the right as well.
The left now believes that there are no boundaries when telling lies, omitting the truth, or misrepresenting facts when telling the news, because their end justifies their means.
Again, this from the people who elected Donald Trump, a man who has told over 4,000 provable lies since he took office.
The left has now decided that its point of view is the only acceptable one, and that suppressing, censoring, and banning open dialogue and debate is virtuous and progressive.
I'm very happy to hear that people on the right just want to have a calm, rational conversation on the issues. But I'm skeptical. Go to the comments section of any article on a conservative news site and see how willing those people seem to be to have a calm, rational discussion on the issues. In fact, go to the comments on this video, and I guarantee you will not find people on the right who want to have a calm, rational discussion about the issues. That door swings both ways, guys.
The Democratic Party has adopted a deleterious belief system, happily and without skepticism, separating people into groups based off of identity and then organizing them into camps of victims and oppressors. If you are a person of color, an LGBT person, a woman, or an American immigrant, the Democratic Party wants you to know that you are a victim and destined to stay that way.
Okay, victim, perhaps. Destined to stay that way? No. The people who have been harassed, assaulted, and murdered are victims, but that's not to say that that's all they'll ever be.
They will insist that you are a victim doomed to exist within a system that is rigged against you, that you are a victim of systemic oppression, that you are a victim of your circumstances, and that no amount of hard work or motivational action will ever allow you to overcome your victimhood or the privilege of those around you.
Not true at all. We do acknowledge that those people are victims. We do not believe that they can never be anything other than victims. We elected one of them to be President of the United States. We celebrate their history and accomplishments during their respective months every year. Straka is basically telling these people to get over it, which is a thing bullies say. Bullies beat you up, and then when you complain about it later, they say, "Psh, that was yesterday. When are you going to stop whining about that?" The people who don't want to play the blame game are usually the ones who are to blame. It's interesting that he takes time out of this video to tell these marginalized groups that they're not just victims and they should get over it, when the main point of the video seems to be that conservatives are the real victims. That's what's so ironic about this video. The main point here is to argue that conservatives are the real victims. That conservatives are the ones who are downtrodden and oppressed.
This is perhaps the Democratic Party's greatest and most insidious lie. But if you are a minority in America today, the left-wing politicians and the liberal media don't want you to ever discover this lie. So they bombard us with stories designed to reinforce the narrative that you are in danger, that you cannot succeed.
We do not do that. You can succeed. The odds may be stacked against you, but you can succeed, as many have shown.
They manipulate your fears and concerns by telling you that you're disadvantaged, disempowered, and disposable to everyone except them. They will tell you that you need them. They will tell you that you are only safe under their supervision. They will promise to liberate you from all that chains you. And then they will do absolutely nothing for you.
And what exactly has the right done for these oppressed groups? What exactly have the right done for racial minorities, religious minorities, the LGBT? Please.
Once upon a time, I was a liberal. But liberalism has changed, and I will no longer be a part of an ideology or political party that represents everything that contradicts my values of unity, equal opportunity, personal empowerment, compassion, and love.
Those are not the values of the right. They're not. Unity is not the value of people who elected Donald Trump, who shits on everyone, including his own constituents, and especially people who disagree with him. Equal opportunity is not demonstrated by the people who believe that it should be legal to discriminate against the LGBT community in the workplace and in housing. Personal empowerment, I'll give you that one, because it's basically another way of saying, you're on your own, why should I be obligated to help you? Compassion is not demonstrated by the people who believe that it's not the government's job to take care of people in need. And love is not demonstrated by the people who lose their minds when they hear someone speaking Spanish or march through the streets carrying Confederate flags and swastikas.
So I am walking away. And I encourage all of you to do the same. Walk away.
Well, I wonder if Batman knows that this guy borrowed his theme music. Okay, so this video has gone on a bit longer than I thought it would, so I'm going to split it in two. We just finished watching my initial reaction to the video. Tomorrow we will go deeper into my thoughts on the video as a whole. I'm sure I don't have to tell you to leave me your thoughts on the video itself and my reaction to it in the comments below. I look forward to reading those. Tell me what you think. Are conservatives the real victims here? Does left-wing violence even hold a candle to right-wing violence? Thank you very much for joining me for this conversation. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. It's great to have you joining me. I hope that you'll subscribe and join me for future conversations and check out my previous videos for more. If you're a current subscriber, welcome back. It's great to have you tuning in again. I really appreciate your continued support. Thank you very much. Until next time, everyone, take care.